Fly chick coming through. Nice to meet you. Glad you came too. Like your style when you know you got moves. You spit game and you know you spit.
Well, everyone, welcome, all of you, to the very first episode of the Fastlane Collective. I am so excited to be here. I'm so excited. We are so excited to be launching this podcast. I will be your host, Brianna, and co-hosted by the lovely Daniella. Daniella, say hi.
Hello.
And the lovely Yasmin.
Hello. Oh my god, this is just so exciting. It's finally there.
I know, this is wild. If we sound familiar to you guys right now, that's because we all were on a former podcast known as Across the Pond Motorsports. As much as we loved being with that sports network, we made the decision at the end of last season to take on a new adventure, new challenges, and make the show a little bit more of our own. So if you're wondering, man, these girls' voices really sound like, do I know you? Moment, that's because you probably do. But we're really, really excited to invite you to what we have created, this podcast, this space, this community, which is known as the Fastlane Collective. If you want to know what this show is all about, it really is for every kind of F1 fan out there. We want our show to be a place that you can learn, you can laugh, and you can be 100% yourself. I know our goal with this show is to be 100% ourselves with you guys, and we can't wait for you to feel that same kind of vibes with this show and this community. If you're wondering what the heck is this show about, maybe you listened to us on ATP before. We'll be bringing you all kinds of things, from F1 news to a bit of F1 history, race recaps, our opinions on all things F1, and of course a little bit of pop culture and paddock gossip sprinkled in there. We cannot not talk about the gossip, but we wanted this to be a really well-rounded podcast. So even if you're a beginner to the F1 world, welcome. This is a great place for you to start. Or if you're a seasoned vet, welcome also. This show really is made for you guys, and we really, really just wanted to bring a place in a community where everyone can just feel the love and be 100% their crazy F1 fan self. We will have surprise guests along the way. Interviews will be coming, which is very, very exciting. We're excited to bring that to you as well. And we also really want to hear from you guys too. Throughout the series, we're going to integrate some things where you guys can leave us comments, questions, so we can talk back and talk with you. We want you to be a part of the show just as much as we are a part of it. And new episodes release every single Tuesday. Well, as much as we will try, but every Tuesday. But oh my goodness. Okay, sorry. Housekeeping's out of the way. We do want to introduce ourselves a little bit if you don't know us. So, Daniella, I'm going to throw it to you. Let the people know who you are.
Okay, so I am 23. I'm originally from Northampton, which is about 10 minutes from Silverstone, but I recently moved to London. I think it was like just over a year ago. For my job, and I am a motorsport researcher, and I currently work for a production company called Whisper, and I predominantly work on the Formula E broadcast, but sometimes little bits of F1 get sprinkled in along the way, and I'm very, very lucky that I get to work in this industry. It's a lot of fun. It can be quite stressful and a lot of long hours, but it is a whole lot of excitement and fun, and I'm, as I said, very grateful for that. Outside of motorsport, I am a guide leader. I've been a part of girl guiding for, I think, almost 15 years. It's been a big part of my childhood, and then that kind of like integrated into my adult life. And I have loved every moment of my time in guiding. I've worked on different projects. I've become a leader doing my qualifications, and I just genuinely just absolutely love it. It's one of my favourite parts of my week. I kind of just like switch off from work and get to volunteer with girls aged 10 to 14, and it's just a lot of fun. In terms of my F1 like favourite things, I guess my favourite team are McLaren, closely followed by Williams, mostly because of the history. I really love F1 history. You will probably hear a lot from me throughout the year of kind of sprinkling in different F1 facts and things that I have found that I want to share with you all. My favourite driver for pretty much the whole of my life has been Daniel Ricciardo. But my current favourite F1 driver, which might spark a little controversy based on what I just said about Daniel Ricciardo having been my favourite F1 driver for basically my whole life, is I am a Liam Lawson fan as well. And if you didn't know, Liam Lawson took over from Daniel Ricciardo halfway through last season, when Daniel departed from the VCARB team. But that didn't make me hate Liam. That made me proud of Liam that he'd got this far, and I'm excited to see what he can do in the Red Bull. And my favourite F1 things, I would say that one of my favourite things that I own is I have a W Series cap. So I know this technically isn't F1, but it's motorsport related. For those who might not know what W Series was, it was an all-female championship that came before F1 Academy, and I have a cap that is signed by quite a few of the drivers. Throughout my job and throughout like my time as a fan, I've been very lucky to have met or worked with some of these drivers and was able to get my cap signed, and it's one of my like treasured possessions. I was arguably the biggest W Series fan known to man, and
She really was. She really was. Like, the love for W Series is so real when she talks about that.
I am very passionate about W Series, and I'm very lucky that the people that I work with on Formula E used to work on the W Series broadcast, and so they have very kindly passed on a lot of merch and things that they had kind of picked up from their time on W Series. So I feel very, very grateful for that. And one fact that you may not know about me, and it's a bit of a strange fact, but I have a fear of cows. I have done most of my life. Yeah, I don't think you guys know this. Yeah. I've had some awful experiences of cows. Often when I'm riding a bike, they've like stopped in my path. They have chased me. I've been in a situation where I was in a field full of cows and with my guide unit, actually, funnily enough, and I was surrounded by cows. And yeah, I've never had like an average or good experience of cows. So now I have a fear of cows.
That is so random. I'm sorry.
Really? We didn't even know this. So guys, this is just such a surprise.
So before we like got on the podcast, Brianna asked us to like have a think about like different things about ourselves, and she said like think of a fact about yourself that is not F1 related. That's what I brought to the table, guys.
Love it. Fear of
Win.
cows. Yeah, winning. Yasmin, I don't know if your fun fact's gonna take that away from Daniella right now, but you're next. You're up.
Well, my fun fact is that like I can't really swim. Yes, I am 21 years old. We'll start there actually. We'll work our way down. Okay, so I'm
Start
20.
with the weird. Just start with the weird. Which also we didn't know that either, that she couldn't swim.
Yeah. I love the ocean, and I just kind of float. I don't really go very far. But anyway, yes, my fun fact, I can't really swim, but I'm 21 years old. Again, can't swim, kind of embarrassing. And I am from Ireland, specifically the north of Ireland. I work as a care assistant. Yes, I make a living of cleaning and feeding old people. Very glamorous, very lovely. I love my job.
Much needed thing, I would like to say, okay? Doing God's work.
Yeah, I mainly work with heavy dementia, people who have quite heavy dementia. So yes, they all have safe space in my heart. But on top of that as well, I study sports journalism at university. My kind of hobbies, I guess, are outside of Formula One. Obviously, is kind of I do a lot of painting and like pottery as well. Quite random. I do love to read when I get a chance. Usually I read on my night shift, trying to keep my brain awake. And on top of that, if for other like sports I like is WWE. Again, quite different from Formula One, but I've got to juice it up, got to spice it up a wee bit. For my favourite team / driver, same as Daniella, I started in the sport being just obsessed with Danny Rick. unfortunate that he's gone. If you listen to Across the Pond Motorsports podcast that we were originally on, you would hear a lot about me and Daniella being quite heartbroken about the trials and tribulations of Daniel Ricciardo's career. But for me, my favourite driver would probably, at the minute, be Oscar Piastri. I just love Australians, apparently. um,
You got a
yeah,
thing. You have a type, obviously.
I do. I seem to with drivers. But the team I'm really kind of looking forward to watching this season would be Ferrari. I'm just so intrigued to see the Lewis Hamilton dynamic with Ferrari as well with Charles. You know, he's not going to be that number one driver anymore, so it's going to be just really intriguing to see. And lastly, my favorite Formula One thing that I own is my Senna Lego set collection. It is just magnificent. I built it. Nobody touches it. I dust it. Yes, I dust it. Nobody go near it. It is my pride and joy.
I love it. And hopefully we'll have Yasmin's fun fact about Yasmin that she didn't tell you. Her mom's also a giant F1 fan and obsessed with Senna, so maybe we'll have her on the show. We did have her on our old podcast before, and much love. So we're just like this group. Some of us are scared of cows, some of us can't swim. I feel like my fact now is not as cool as your guys' facts, which is like kind of embarrassing, but I'll start with my weird facts since we just are going with the weird things. I was and currently still am a big Jonas Brothers fan. If you know them, you should. If you don't know them, where have you been? I don't know, the past decade. But huge Jonas Brothers fan. I have gotten like so close to meeting them so many times to the point where a coworker of mine was best friends with them and their former manager, and I was like, oh my god, I'm like one person removed from a Jonas brother. And then a friend of mine also had a connection to them. A friend of hers worked for the family and was with them all the time. And I was like, oh my god, this is it. But I've never met them. So that's my weird fact. I'm still kind of obsessed with them. I love them, specifically Joe Jonas. And when you look at them, actually, like, come on, Nick Jonas and Joe Jonas, they could be F1 drivers. Sorry, Kevin, I'm not trying to, like, poo-poo on Kevin, but he's got the dad vibe thing going. And they've actually been to F1 races. They were at Miami with Alpine, I think. So it's kind of cool to see sometimes my two obsessions, Formula One and the Jonas Brothers, come together. So that's my weird fact. But besides that, I am the elder millennial of this podcast group. I'm 32 years old. I'm from Pennsylvania in the United States, but I'm currently living and loving my life in Boston right now. Lucky me, I live on the ocean, so sorry, Yasmin. I guess you could come and float if you wanted to.
I'll try.
But my full-time job, unlike Daniella, is not as cool as Daniella's job. Or actually Yasmin's job. I work in marketing, so I'm a graphic designer, art director. So a lot of the design you see, our logo, courtesy of your girl. I love designing for especially this podcast and this group. So it's what I do on my off time and what I do on my full-time job. I used to work in professional sports, actually, in baseball, and ironically, I really don't like baseball. I pretty much like every other sport but baseball. But I worked in Major League Sports for a little bit, so that was very cool to be a part of and see, and also be a woman in that space and be able to represent. I'm obsessed with content creating. Some of you actually might know me from over on TikTok. I love creating F1 content and just honestly any form of content I love creating. I'm also obsessed with shopping. If I'm not creating, you'll probably find me on Newbury Street in Boston, which is the main shopping street. It's just like where I go for my happy place. I'm addicted to designer goods as well, which is just a horrible hobby to have. Don't recommend. How I'm addicted to the most expensive luxury goods and the most expensive sport on earth. Like, am I trying to kill myself? I don't know. Or empty my bank account or go broke. Unsure. As for Formula One specifically, Your girl is a Ferrari girl through and through. I took a trip to Italy this year and literally went to every Ferrari F1 thing I could find. Monaco, all the Ferrari museums. Amazing. So that's how dedicated I am to this team. And I'm obsessed with Charles Leclerc. So Lewis Hamilton coming in this season, to be honest with you, I'm excited, but I don't know how I feel about it. And I even have my Charles Leclerc shirt on today. To represent my boy. And then lastly, also you may know me from a brand called Grand Prix Girl. It's actually a brand that I own with my mom and run. Daniella and Yasmin right now, if you're watching us on YouTube, they're wearing some of our product. So they're really showing it off. Thank you, ladies. I really appreciate that. So you might know me from over there, GP Girl. And GP Girl, I'm proud to say, is also the sponsor of this podcast because why not? I love the show and it just aligns, right, guys? It just, makes sense. So, we had me sponsor it.
It does. And, I mean, the jewelry is fantastic. If you haven't seen it, please go over. We'll link it in all our descriptions. Please have a look. It is just fantastic. Non-biased as well. Kind of biased, but non-biased because it's beautiful. So, take my word for it.
I really love that you guys do that because I feel biased. Honestly, I feel like it feels a little weird promoting my own product because obviously I love it. I created it. I designed it. Of course I love it. But it really is a female run and owned brand by me and my mom. And it's all geared toward creating merchandise specifically for women in the sport because I was looking for cute merch and I really couldn't find any. And that's how kind of GP Girl was born. But this is not a show about GP Girl. This is a show about Formula One. Thanks for sticking with us. This is the first episode, guys. So we felt we needed to give you a little info, little fun facts, for those of you that don't know us. But we promise every episode won't be this much consumed. We are not that vain. We are not that vain. So, no worries.
Or are we?
Plot twist. This isn't actually a Formula One podcast. It's a podcast about us. But we really, really are excited that you're here, and we're gonna jump right into the main thing for this podcast, and that is Formula One. And guys, F1 is back. Daniella, I feel like you're in the motorsports world all the time. So did it feel like F1 was back for you, or were you like, oh, another motorsport I need to follow?
A little bit like that because I have kind of picked up a bit more F1 work this season. So I've kind of been across testing in different ways than I was last year. But because we've had Formula E. Formula E was back from December. I have kind of been within that mode. I didn't really feel like I had a winter break because as soon as F1 ended, Formula E was up and running. And I've been preparing for that. So I kind of hadn't really had it hasn't been quiet for me over the winter break, but I'm really excited that F1 is back. This year I feel is going to be one of the best years of F1, and I really hope that stays true going forward. I don't want to claim this now and then it's a really awful year, but I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of competition. We've got 5 new rookies on the grid. If you listened to ATP, you would have heard me go on and on and on about getting rookies into F1. I was getting so fed up that we weren't getting any new rookies coming in and that people were kind of outstaying their welcome, but it's finally happened and we have now got 5 new rookies, which is the first time this has happened in Formula One, and I'm very excited. So I do think this is going to be a good season. I am happy it is back. Testing has been quite interesting, so kind of getting delving into that has been a lot of fun, and I'm really excited for us to kind of talk about that later on in the podcast. But yeah, It is here, it is back, and I cannot wait for Australia.
Yeah, honestly, I would like to take credit that we manifested all of those rookies that are now in Formula One because literally every single episode, I think it came up in conversation on ATP. Why are all these old farts sticking around? Not old farts, sorry, we don't want to insult them, but, as much as we love Danny Rick, it was I think it's time. I think it's time we give a chance to someone. So I agree with you, though, Daniella. Super excited. I feel like there's so much unknown right now. just because of the rookies, all these changes of people going to teams. Yasmin, are you feeling those same vibes? Like, we are kind of in this world of unknown when it comes to what this season is going to hold.
I think this is like the first time in a long time I've been. I'm always excited for the season to start, but even more excited than usual. Just because the entire grid has had such a shakeup, from people moving teams, from people leaving Formula One altogether, rookies, even with testing and all the results from testing. I'm so excited. I can't wait. And I can't wait for chaos. Like, just being real, I can't wait for just not knowing who's gonna be in that number one spot. And I hope that it's not a predictable year with, after a couple of races, we kind of know who's going to be getting the wins and which team's going to end up on top. I really hope it's kind of a year where we're all on the edge of our seat for each race.
Absolutely. I think we're really excited as fans. I personally, this is the most excited I have been in a while for a season to start. Which as a fan is just such a refreshing feeling. But yeah, like you guys mentioned, we're going to dive into testing here in a little bit, but we really wanted to talk about some news that came up this week. Obviously, with F1 being back, lots of things happening, lots of news going on out there. But we picked kind of our top things we wanted to bring you in the news realm of Formula One. Some you might have heard and some you might have not. We're trying to bring you some news that's not everybody and their mother's not talking about. So first of all, as I said that, I'm going to start off with something everybody and their mother's talking about. But Drive to Survive Season 7 is coming out March 7th, so that's coming up this coming Friday. And I'm really excited to announce that over on our TikTok at the Fastlane Collective _. Yasmin and I will be going live at 5 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. GMT time to watch the first episode of Drive to Survive live together. So if you want to watch with some friends, come on over to our TikTok. Make sure to follow us over there. We'll be going live, chit-chatting about the episode and watching it together. But Drive to Survive has obviously played such a huge rise in Formula One over the past 7 years. And it came at the perfect time during COVID when everyone was craving something to watch. Personally, for me, the excitement of Drive to Survive has died off a little bit. As a fan, I remember watching last season and feeling like, okay, guys, we are manufacturing some things here. And this is not really the tea. This is fake tea. And it kind of made me a little sad because I really do enjoy those documentary style shows that really let us into behind the scenes that we don't always see in Formula One. But this year, they dropped the trailer yesterday. Yasmin, did you see that trailer? And did it get you excited?
Oh my god. Yes, it really did. Because I was like you, I don't even think I finished last year's season because I kind of got bored. I was like, I'm not interested. But this trailer has me excited, especially with like the end with Gunther.
Oh my god, we love a good Gunther moment. I love that he's still in F1 and he's not really in F1. I mean, he is, but isn't. But he's an icon. He's a legend. He is the moment.
He is like the ambassador, I think, sometimes for Formula One, especially for Drive to Survive. But I am definitely really excited. I'm especially excited to see kind of Toto's reaction to the news of Lewis leaving Mercedes and going to Ferrari. I think there's just a lot more to kind of see behind the scenes and to kind of talk about with Drive to Survive, although I do hope they don't kind of fabricate stuff like you were mentioning for last season. So let's hope it's a good season, and we shall see on Friday when we stream.
Yeah, I'm pumped for it. I think obviously because we know there was so much going on last year, so to me it was kind of like, I don't think they need to fabricate anything. It's all right there. Like, everything is right there. Starting off the year with the Christian Horner drama, and then it looking like Red Bull was really going to take the whole season. McLaren just swooping on in. The drama between Oscar and Lando the whole season. Lewis leaving. Like, there's so many storylines I could go with. I did take a quick peek. They did drop the episode names and kind of the episode synopsises. So there's 8 episodes. One is specifically covering Lewis's move. I saw another one is specifically covering Charles' Monaco win, which I'm like, oh my god, I can't wait to relive it. Like, I tried to relive it. I literally created a piece of merchandise for my company that is dedicated to reliving that Monaco moment. And it's actually called Le Curse of Leclerc, which I was like, what a spot on title for that episode. So I am really, really excited to kind of just dive into that. Daniella, also, did you see in the trailer that the most controversial human on the face of Formula One Earth is going to be in this season? Flavio Briatore? Did you see this?
Okay, I had to put my hands up and say I have not watched the trailer.
Oh no!
So I didn't know, but it's okay. I didn't even know the trailer had been dropped. I think maybe I was living under a rock the last 2 days, so I had no idea. But
You've been busy.
I have been quite busy. For those who don't know, I was on a run with Billy Munger this morning. That's how busy I am. No, I'm kidding. I was on a run with Billy, but I'm not that busy.
Name drop.
I'm not that entitled either. But I had no idea that it had dropped, so I haven't seen it. And my kind of takes on Drive to Survive, I find it really hard to watch because it is very fabricated. Even seasons that were like, as in like F1 seasons that were good, were fabricated. They always are. It is how they make good TV. I did find last season very boring. I was kind of done with Drive to Survive. I was like, I would be happy if they didn't make any more seasons. And I feel like that's kind of a controversial opinion. But I also appreciate Drive to Survive for the fact that it's brought in so many new fans and it's made F1 a lot more accessible, which I think was needed for this sport. So I do understand why it's there, and I'm excited to see what they do and what storylines they tell and how they tell them. Since working in broadcasting myself, I've kind of been learning all about the art of storytelling, and I'd like to see how other companies are doing that, which is why I'm quite intrigued to see what the take is with Drive to Survive this year. I don't even know like the episode names or what they're about. Can I ask, is there one about Daniel Ricciardo?
Yes, I think there is. There is
Okay,
one about that whole
I will sob.
swap.
I will be crying my heart out. And that's, I feel like, all I need to say on that episode. And I haven't even watched it yet. So stay tuned for our episode where we will kind of delve into all of our thoughts and opinions on Drive to Survive. But I think this season, I feel like, might be a good one just because of the amount of drama that happened last season, where the previous seasons before that, they were kind of having to make stories out of nothing. There wasn't really anything to tell. So that's why a lot of things are fabricated. But as you guys have said, like, they don't really need to fabricate anything this year because there was so much drama. I know for a fact that they will. It's in their blood. It's in their nature. They will take team radio from one race, but claim it's in another race. Okay, it's going to happen. Same with interviews. So annoying. It's going to happen. It is so annoying. But it's what they have to do in their eyes to create good TV.
I mean, on the whole, like, Fabio Briatore being brought into this, I was like, they really are trying to stir the pot now. They're bringing pretty much, if you guys don't know about Flavio Briatore, I'm probably butchering his name. Also, I just want to make a precursor right now. We will butcher names in this podcast. Do not come for us, okay? We all have different accents. We're all from different parts of the world, all right? Deal. Anyways, if you do not know about this man, go look him up right now. It will literally be the most soap opera / dramatized thing you will ever know or read about Formula One. If you're familiar with the whole, like, situation with Fernando Alonso, years and years back about the race, he was involved in it. He basically was possibly the mastermind. Also, I believe he's actually a convicted felon. Tax evasion maybe somewhere. So
Yep.
If you've ever watched, how do I describe who this man is in, like, reality TV terms? Like, who would be his reality TV twin?
I would say that, not like reality TV, but I would say he looks and sounds like a Bond villain.
Yes!
Like, that's the feel I get from him. I'm like, I'm so scared.
He is a Bond villain. That is perfect. That's exactly what I was looking for. I was gonna say he's like, if you've ever watched Real Housewives of New Jersey, he is the Teresa Giudice of this situation. He just is crazy and like destructive, but Bond villain is much better because he's just so conniving. But when I saw that they were including him, not just like in the background in the film, like they are interviewing him. They're doing the whole talking head sitting down in the chair interview, and I'm like, oh my God. This is going to be everything I've probably wished for in Drive to Survive. So I'm excited to see how that plays out. I think it's just going to be a little bit, just like we said, I'm just so excited for Formula One this year. I feel like that's how I also feel about Drive to Survive. I was also getting a little bored with it, and now I'm like, ooh, this could be good.
Can I ask another question?
Absolutely.
Who else was featured in this trailer? Was Danica Patrick in it?
No.
Okay, first of all, that's good. I hope that she's not in it. No offense, Danica. Really not your biggest fan. Second of all, were there any women that were featured in this trailer?
I have to. Oh.
I'm gonna take this as a no because I feel like if there was, you would have been able to have said it immediately.
No, there was.
Oh, there was?
Who was it?
Who was in the
Susie?
trailer, guys?
Was it Susie? Oh no, Claire Williams.
Yes,
Williams.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Claire
Okay.
Williams. I'm sorry.
I had a brain
Claire
fart.
Williams.
I was like, I knew there was a woman somewhere. I can't remember.
We saw a female someone. Someone was on screen that had boobs. Who was it? I don't know. Claire Williams. She was in it.
Okay, I'm glad that we've got at least one, hopefully multiple,
pair.
but at least.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be more because I would love to see some of the F1 like Laura Winter or Natalie or even Naomi Schiff. I would love to see them more on there, but we will see. All TBD. A trailer does not tell all. It is just a trailer. It's a teaser. So we will see. We will see.
I also have another thought, but for next year's Drive to Survive. So you know how Will Buxton is like the face of Drive to Survive? Like he got his fame through Drive to Survive.
Right.
Well, if you didn't know, here's a bit of F1 news that you might not know. Will Buxton is actually moving on to IndyCar.
I saw.
I know. That's crazy.
Does that mean we won't get Will Buxton in season 8 of Drive to Survive?
Actually, now that you say that, I don't remember seeing him in the trailer.
So he might not be even in season 7.
He might not.
Didn't see him at all. Not even like a soundbite from him.
You're right. Oh my God, how did I miss that? How did I
How
watch
did we
that
both
entire
miss that? We watched the trailer.
I
didn't
watched
even watch the trailer.
I know.
Like,
Daniella didn't even watch the trailer, and she's pointing out things that we missed, even though we watched the trailer. I watched the trailer like 4 times yesterday. Wow. Okay. Well, let's end that bit of news there on DTS. We're excited. Come watch with us over on TikTok Live on Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. GMT. We'll see you there, and we can talk all the tea and trash over there on that live. Okay. Another bit of news we wanted to discuss. This is kind of old, but obviously it's our first episode that we're launching, so we feel like we needed to discuss it. Carlos Sainz, our man for Williams, has been voted by his fellow drivers as the Grand Prix Drivers Association director. He will be serving alongside George Russell on this team. What were your thoughts, Yasmin? Like, Carlos was voted in. It wasn't like he was like, I'll do it. They voted him in. So what do you think this says about Carlos as a whole and his kind of place in F1?
I think it really cements his place in F1. Not that I thought that he was that he wasn't cemented already in the world of F1. I mean, like, look at my mug. If you can't see, if you're only listening to the audio, I have a mug with a heart of Carlos Sainz's face saying Carlos Sainz biggest fan, and this is my mum's mug She's a big
Yeah.
Carlos Sainz fan. But
He's
anyway,
winking, by the way, in that picture. He's like
Oh, yeah.
inside the heart and winking. It's wow. I mean, it's a thing of beauty. I need that mug.
My mum's obsessed. But anyway, moving on. I honestly, out of everyone to get that role, I wouldn't have thought Carlos. And to be honest, I don't really know who George Russell, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Total sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I think, Carlos was saying, like, I was reading quotes and his, like, thoughts, and he's really excited for the role and proud to be voted in. And I think especially his time at Ferrari has really matured him as well. I'm talking about him like he's like a 20-year-old rookie, but I just think he's really like coming to his own, especially in Ferrari. Not just outside of the car, but inside the car as well, with his racing as well. And I think it's going to be a great role for him. And I think Carlos is really going to put the drivers first. And I'm kind of excited to see what he does in that role and where it takes him.
Yeah, and he's obviously replacing a vacant role. Sebastian Vettel previously held this role, so it's been vacant for a hot second. Daniella, do you think that this is just a sign of, those are pretty big shoes to fill, being Sebastian Vettel? Do you think this is a sign that Carlos is kind of stepping very, very much into this leadership role, not just in Williams, but also in the Drivers Association as a whole?
Absolutely. Like, as you said, big shoes to fill. And you said the seat has been vacant for a while. And like Yas said, I was not expecting it. But when I think about how far like Carlos has come over the last couple of years, he has really matured and developed as a person and as a driver. And I think that he has previously, we're talking like maybe 5 years ago now, has said like comments that were quite controversial and has maybe like said some things that I don't approve of. But in like the last like year or two, I've really kind of seen a change in Carlos. And I think that I feel like he's kind of had that switch that Sebastian Vettel had, where like when he was younger, Sebastian got a lot of hate, and he would come out and say things that maybe he shouldn't. And then he kind of grew up, and then he started advocating more and looking into the environment, and he really had like kind of like a personality shift. And I think the same thing is starting to happen with Carlos. I feel like he's definitely becoming a more likable character, and I'm intrigued to see like how he gets involved with this, because we know that George has released a few statements and things under his role as director as well, and I'll be interesting to see how and what Carlos like says on matters as well. I think I wouldn't have picked him as everyone's like choice. Weirdly enough, the person I thought of that they might have gone for would have been Alex Albon. I feel like he would have suited that role quite well, which is his teammate this year. But I think that it will be quite interesting dynamic between him and George together. So yeah, I'm quite excited to see like how that all works, and how kind of Carlos kind of takes that role back into race weekends and kind of fights for the other drivers and their opinions and their thoughts on maybe some of the FIA's decisions.
Yeah, and I think too, for me, if anything, this is just a huge sign as to how the drivers are viewing Carlos in this greater group of the GPDA, and also just shows how much respect a lot of these drivers have for Carlos. Obviously, this position involves representing all the drivers as a whole, so the fact that they chose and voted him in is very interesting. And I think, like you said, both Daniella and Yasmin, he's kind of cementing his place in F1, kind of taking more on this, stepping into this, like, grown-up, I'm kind of one of the older ones in Formula One now, this leadership role. And I think it was just kind of interesting. I agree. He wasn't my first, when I saw it, I was like, wow, really? They voted him? Interesting. Not my first pick. But when I kind of take a look at it and dive a little deeper into it, seems to make a lot of sense. So interesting to see that the drivers felt that Carlos was the right man to represent them all as a whole. And if you don't know, you can follow the GPDA on Instagram. You can see all their statements there, if you're interested in that. All right, speaking of another leader in the sport, Lewis Hamilton, man, I mean, I feel like this whole news segment could have just been about Lewis, because just with testing and seeing him for the first time in red at F175, like, there's just been so much going on. But I think two really big things that stood out to me Lewis Hamilton news-wise this week. Seeing him become a partner and a sponsor with Lululemon, really, I think, smart move by him. That brand and kind of who Lewis Hamilton is, I think, just goes together quite perfectly. And we don't often see Lululemon kind of sponsoring athletes in any of these quote unquote extreme sports. They're more of kind of like athleisure. They tend to skew a little bit more fashion instead of function. And I was very, very surprised by the video they put out with him. It was quite intense. It felt almost Nike-esque to me, which is not Lululemon's brand at all. It's very opposite. So this was kind of a cool, surprising thing. Obviously, we know Guan Yu Zhou had a partnership with Lululemon, is the reserve driver for Ferrari this year. So part of me wondered, like, how did that? Did those two get together and they were like, hey, you should talk to them? Yasmin, were you surprised to see that Lewis, one, took on a sponsor, and two, that sponsor being Lululemon?
Yeah, when I first saw it, I thought it was quite odd, because I just don't see them two together. Like you were saying, it's just not Lululemon's kind of brand. And also, like, Lululemon to me is like hot yoga pants in a way. Like, again, like, Lululemon isn't really something, I guess, it's more an American brand, so I wouldn't know too much about it. But what I do know about Lululemon is just that I just like yoga kind of leisure wear, like you were saying. So,
Yeah.
yoga, Lewis Hamilton, not really what I put two and two together. But like you said, the advertising and the marketing of it, again, Brianna, you would know more about this than me, but I was like, damn, I need to get me some Lululemon. Like, this is
It
fire.
works.
It
The
worked.
sponsorship is working.
It works.
Yeah.
I was like, damn, I gotta get me a pair.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you both, actually. Obviously, in the States, Lululemon is huge. It's also quite expensive here as well. Like, a pair of leggings will run you over $100. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm a sucker. I have a ton of their products. I fell into the Lululemon trap, but their products are quite good. I will give them that. You're not paying $100 for something that's gonna fall apart in a month or two.
$100?
Yeah, 100
For
USD.
leggings?
The sweatshirts are even more. They're like 180. But
No.
yeah. You definitely need a pretty penny to afford this stuff. But I think brand-wise, and coming from the marketing background that I have, this partnership between the two of them makes so much sense. Lewis Hamilton has always preached kind of this like health journey, very much focusing on mental health, meditation, mindfulness, and that is very much Lululemon's brand. They're not the extreme like football or anything like that. They're not like, oh, buy our leggings so you can go run a marathon. That is not Lululemon. Lululemon is buy our leggings so you can wear them at home and be cute and comfortable and also go to yoga class at the end of the day. And they're just comfortable. But I was just gonna ask both of you, Lululemon, is that big in, I mean, Daniella, you're in London, so
Yeah, I feel like it's not that big. I feel like there's other places, like other companies that are bigger. Like Gymshark, I would say it's probably one of our biggest in the
Interesting.
UK. I think like it being an American brand in terms of like Lululemon, I don't know if it really kind of hits our audience. So I feel like um I noticed when I went to Australia that a lot of them kind of wear like these fitness outfits as kind of everyday wear. And I feel like in England we don't to the same extent that maybe America and Australia do. So I feel like we don't necessarily have that much like Lululemon, like we don't have very many Lululemon stores and things like that here. So I think that I don't own anything from them. I've never bought anything from them. I don't even think I've looked on their website.
interesting.
Mostly because I have heard that it is very expensive. And I've been across like other people like I've been across hearing other people say this, that I didn't realize that Lululemon like made like clothing for anything outside of a women audience. Like I thought that was their main target audience for women.
Yeah.
and I didn't know if they made like gender inclusive or like male clothing as well. I just knew them for creating clothing for women.
Yeah, they do. They actually have quite a men's line. I have a friend of mine that swears by their men's stuff. He's like, it's the best. Um, so this actually is making so much more sense now why Lulu has partnered with him. They are probably really looking to expand their brand reach over into Europe and the UK, which makes a lot of sense. Because like you said, Danielle, like you literally probably pop off a plane here in the US and you could probably spot 10 plus people in Lulu. Like it's very popular here, and athleisure and streetwear is very popular here. So I think that brand really makes sense, but I think what more surprised me was we don't see Lewis taking on many brand partnerships. And if we do see him taking on quote unquote partnerships, it's in tandem with the team he's with. So it's not like, hey, I'm Lewis Hamilton and I chose to take this partnership. It's more, well, they have a partnership with Mercedes or Ferrari, so I am contractually obligated to do this commercial, do this ad kind of thing. So, quite interesting. Last bit of Lewis Hamilton news, Time magazine cover. Oh my God. This was as if like so many epic Lewis Hamilton moments have happened over the past 2 weeks. It keeps coming. And when I saw this Time magazine cover, I was like, oh, chef's kiss. Oh my goodness. But not just the photos and the cover is what surprised me with this whole thing. It was the article itself. Lewis Hamilton is just the quotes that came out of this article, and this article in itself was just, I think, the most open and honest interview I've seen him do in a long time. It's the first time I felt like I actually got into Lewis Hamilton's head and learned some more about him and who he is and why he's doing what he did. Just one of the quotes from the article, he was asked kind of why he left Mercedes to go to Ferrari. Why would you do that? You've been with them for forever. And he said, I needed to throw myself into something uncomfortable again. Honestly, I thought all of my firsts were done. Your first car, your first crash, your first date, your first day of school. The excitement I got by the idea. This is my first time in a red suit. The first time in the Ferrari. Wow, honestly, I've never been so excited. And I think that quote just sums up exactly where Lewis is at right now in his career. Yasmin, what do you think of this Times article and kind of this different side of Lewis Hamilton that we're seeing come out?
The photos, the fits, fire. The interview, fire, dropping heat, stirring up the media, incredible. Like, I really think Lewis Hamilton is kind of putting out a message of, I'm coming for you guys this season, beware, he's coming for blood, hence the red Ferrari gear. I do just think that this is what Lewis needs, especially the last couple of years when he didn't get that 8th World Championship. You kind of saw, of course it would hit you hard, and it definitely hit him hard, of like, it was right in his grasp and it kind of went away. I think Lewis needed this change. He needed just a, right, wipe the slate clean, let's try again, let's go, and kind of get that excitement back, because I feel like Lewis did kind of lose that excitement in a way with a car that was underperforming and just not being up to Lewis Hamilton kind of scratch in a way. But I'm really excited to see where he goes this season. I hope it's one that he really has incredible battles with Charles and the rest of the grid. But I think that these interviews is just kind of like a warning to everyone that, hey, like, I mean business this year. Stay out of my way.
Absolutely. That is what this whole article said to me. And also he said, like, retirement is a nowhere in his mind, in his future. He's here to play. He's here to win. Daniella, do you think it is just so interesting to see Lewis Hamilton have this like new breath of life and seem this new energy, and that we could possibly see him in the sport for way longer than we ever thought we would?
Absolutely. And the irony of that is before Lewis announced that he was going to Ferrari last year, I remember us on ATP, and I'm sorry that I'm mentioning ATP again. It's just it's a big part of our journey and like how we got to here. But I remember us having a conversation of, do we think we could see Lewis going to another team? Like, would he ever go to Ferrari? And this is before he announced it. There were no rumours. He literally just kind of hard launched it, and that was it. And I said, no, I think Lewis would retire before he was to go anywhere else. I was convinced, and we only said that maybe a week or two before the announcement. And so it's just ironic that I said that, and now he's moved to Ferrari, and I've got this whole change of like, no, I actually think that he will continue longer than expected. If you'd asked me at the end of the 2021 season, when we hadn't heard from Lewis for like what felt like 3 years, it had literally only been like maybe a month. We hadn't heard from him, and everyone was like, oh my God, is he going to leave? Like, what's going on? Back then, I would have said, he's probably going to do 3 more years. He'll be gone after that. Now, I'm like, no, Lewis is trying to prove that he is here and he is here to stay. I think that he has got a very exciting year ahead at Ferrari. I'm quite intrigued to see how it goes, what the dynamic is going to be between him and Charles, what the dynamic is going to be between him and the team. How is it going to work when he's been so used to the way that Mercedes has worked with him? It's going to be completely different. And I kind of want to know, like, how is that going to stand? Because I can sit here now and say, yeah, Lewis is going to be here for like another 3 years. But if things don't go down well with the team, if things a little bit frosty at Ferrari, that might change my opinion. But right now, I feel like Lewis is here to stay. He's got a lot more to give, and I think he is in that hunt for that 8th World Championship.
Yeah. He even said in the article, I don't have a wife, I don't have children. Basically, like, F1 is my life. I have no distractions. This is all I'm about all day, every day. I agree with you, though, Daniella. Like, are we seeing just a little bit of, like, first day at school excitement? That might be a lot of emotion for him. Obviously, also joining such an iconic team and cementing his place in history at Ferrari. Like, there's a lot of emotion going on there. A lot of excitement, he even admitted it. A lot of firsts happening. So when that all kind of wears off and we get down to business, will we see that kind of mindset that he's in now take a turn or change? I could not think of any more opposite teams to go through to Mercedes to Ferrari. Completely opposite.
Yeah, and I think that you said this perfectly. Like, first, a driver of his age, you don't really have that many firsts again. And he has now got this whole, like, new wave of firsts within his career. And he doesn't have, like, a partner or children. And he can just focus on this for as long as he wants. And I think that is part of his plan right now. There is going to be a lot of pressure if he's going to get this 8th World Championship, especially with Ferrari, who have the longest, like, motorsport history in F1, and have, like, broken some of the biggest records. I feel like that pressure is definitely building, especially coming out of testing, especially with him being so positive about the team and what his expectations are this season. I feel like the pressure is going to be there, and if he's there for the next few years, that's going to be consistent across the board until he either moves teams or retires.
Yeah, expectations are high, to say the least, but Yasmin, you hit it on the head. That whole article, the pictures, the fits, the quotes, fire, flames. It was so good. It was so good. And I honestly, as a fan, seeing Lewis Hamilton happy again and excited again makes me happy and excited. Of course, am I biased? I'm a Ferrari fan. Yeah, a little biased. Charles, I still love you. We haven't forgotten about you, okay? But yeah, it is very exciting, and it was really cool just to finally, for a while, get kind of like a first glimpse as to where his head is, where his mind is, and just kind of what he's looking for in the future. So, all right, last bit of news that we want to bring you right now. This is something that I think is pretty big, quite controversial, and I haven't seen many people talking about it at all. So we wanted to bring it to you. We saved it best for last for the news portion of today. There's some FIA drama. Surprise, surprise. When is there not? But this is very, very interesting. Key figures of the FIA, including the FIA Deputy of Sport and the FIA's representative from the UK, have been banned from participating in a meeting of the organization's World Motorsport Council. And the reason why is because they refused to sign an NDA agreement. President of the FIA, Mohammed Ben Salim, you probably heard that name. You've definitely seen him on the track because that man can't stay away from a Formula race if his life depended on it. But he has said that too many leaks, too many things are coming out of these F1 meetings and making their way to the media. So he's decided that NDAs must be signed, especially for this meeting. And these two individuals are saying, no, enough is enough. This is a bit of a protest that they have decided to do. Yasmin, what do you think this means? Is the FIA starting to crack? Is Mohammed Ben Salim's reign starting to really get under people's skin?
Yeah. Listen, I think it's been something that, again, I'm going to bring up ATP, that we discussed so much over the last couple of years. I honestly think every podcast we brought up something about the FIA at some point. And I think when, fans are starting to notice just how much of a, for lack of better words, a shit show sometimes the FIA is ran, I think it's time for him to step down. And I know that he's expected to seek re-election in 2025. And he says he has no issue with others running against him. But at this point, just step down. Let's just start the year again, fresh slate, exciting new year. He should do Lewis Hamilton, take himself off somewhere else. I just don't think he's a good leader for Formula One. To be honest, I think Susie Wolff would be perfect. She would be great for the FIA, especially with, Formula One have the F1 Academy as well, and we're kind of in a space at the minute where we're trying to get more women into the sport, and Ben Salim's had awful comments about women, and I just think that it's time for this man to go, and just let's get him out and let's start new and kind of build the FIA up from scratch, because it is falling apart when you have your own members not wanting to sign an NDA. Come on, there's a big issue here, and he is the issue.
Yeah, and the fact that NDAs are even required to go to a simple meeting, that's alarming. That's
crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see, I don't want to call him a dictator, but we see this a lot of people when they feel like they're losing power, they start to tighten their grip. And I think that's what we're seeing, not just here in this situation, but in other pockets of the FIA. The whole, cracking down on the swearing on the radio type of thing. Just these little things that seem to be focused on. More rules are, happening. More people are having problems in the FIA with things that are happening or being said. And I think we're just seeing him, tighten his grip because he feels like he's losing it. And I just was so surprised that this wasn't bigger news. I only saw maybe, 2 social media accounts talking about this. And I was like, this is pretty crazy. This is pretty insane for this to be happening. So we'll see. I'm sure we will see this drama escalate and play out as the season goes on with him, members. And like you said, he's seeking re-election. We'll see if he even gets re-elected at this point. All right. Lots of news. It always is at the beginning of every season. Let's be real. There's always a lot of news going on.
I think this is just going to be something throughout the podcast episodes that you guys are going to have to get used to, is just us trying to cover everything that happens, because Formula One is just, some weeks there's no news, the next week there's 500 stories that we're trying to cram. So
yeah, consistency in the news is not F1's strong suit. It's just not. And that wasn't even all the news. Those were the ones that we felt were important and actually interesting that you guys would want to hear about. So there's the news. We want to move on really quickly to talk about F1 75. because this is the first time an event like this has ever taken place in Formula One. Obviously, if you didn't watch or didn't know about it, F175 was this huge event held in London to reveal all of the teams' liveries. Usually all the teams separately do their own little song and dance, and we all have to schedule 10 different times to watch these 10 different livery reveals. But F1 decided to take a different turn and also to celebrate 75 years of Formula One as well at the same time. I was gearing up to hate this event. I really was. Your girl was already throwing shade. I mean, a TikTok about how, like, what's the point of having this event? Because I saw some other teams also were going to launch the car. Like, later on, have their own event to launch the car, which I was like, well, then what's the point of this whole event? Just launch the car and the livery at the same time, guys. Like, this is one of those things where we just don't need to overcomplicate it. But, man, was I shut up really quickly. I know we all have different takes on this event because we talked about it a little bit as it was going on 2 weeks ago, a week ago now. I loved it. I loved it from an entertainment standpoint. I think obviously there's things that could be improved, and this was their first time doing it, so no surprise there that it wasn't like perfect. But I absolutely loved it. I thought it was incredibly entertaining. I love that it was kind of run and hosted like an award show, very much like the Oscars or the Grammys, if you've ever watched that before. Jack Whitehall, right? It's Jack Whitehall, right? I didn't mess that. Okay. I always want to call him John Whitehall for some reason. I don't know why. But he was fantastic. I love that they allowed him to like throw shade at everybody, make jokes about everybody, like the whole Toto, everyone's been left for an Italian stallion kind of thing. And I loved a lot of the presentations of the teams. I thought it was entertaining. It was fun. And as a fan, I loved it. I felt like that event was very much for the fans, which I think is what that whole thing should be. And it was exciting. I'm going to kick it to Daniella because I feel like you have a very interesting take on F175, not just because of your awesome self, but because of the work you do and what you do. And you're really looking at it from a different angle than just like a fan. So give it to us. Give us the tea. What did you think of F175?
I have read a lot about F175, and the main consensus that I got is that everyone loved it. I did not love it, and I feel like I'm kind of in a minority here of not enjoying it, and I think partly that is kind of down to the job that I have now. I don't want to keep banging on about my job, but it does really kind of impact how I viewed this whole show, I guess we can call it. Overall, I think it kind of served its purpose of like, it was for the fans enjoyed it, it was a bit of fun, it was something different. However, the whole premise of it was called the F175, yet it didn't really mention that it was 75 years of F1. I think they mentioned it in a like throwaway comment once, and apart from I think it was Ferrari and McLaren, there wasn't really a mention of of F1 history. Then, with that thrown in, you also had the liveries, and then the launches there. You kind of sat there and was like, what actually is going on? You have music events in there. You had some very, very, very brief interviews. I didn't really know what they were trying to achieve, and I think that was kind of my biggest issue with it. I was like, where are we going with this? What are we getting out of this? Because it's not what you guys said it was. You guys said it was going to be all about F175, but it's mostly been about the liveries and some questionable music acts that you decided to go with, which I'll come on to that as well. Like, the problem I have with the music acts is I feel like they could have had one as an opening act, one as a closing act, but their choices were rather bizarre because they're trying to reach a new audience whilst also kind of keeping their current / the older audiences. But I feel like they just threw that all out the window, went with like choices that no one really wanted or asked for, that did not cater really for any of their audience. I would say the only thing that kind of catered was take that fit the more older audience, but only for the UK. If you were outside of the UK, I don't think you guys knew who Take That was. Brianna, can I just ask you, do you know who Take?
Yeah,
Did you know
I
who
did
Take
it.
That were before?
No, when they came on, I was like, who are these, like, very old Backstreet Boy-esque looking people in all leather? I was very confused, and they were like, Grammy nominated, or won 53 Grammys. I was like, how have they won 53 Grammys or been nominated? And I have no idea who they are. Yeah, I really didn't. As an American, I was like, who are the grandpas on stage?
So that kind of like proves my point here. They didn't really know what they were doing. It was very unclear. It was like they all had all these different ideas and they all just tried to merge it into one thing. And I just don't feel like it came off that well. I also kind of like, I loved the staging. I thought the staging and the lighting was great. But each team had their own separate like way of launching. Some of them did VTs, some of them were just on stage. Some of them were walking through the fans. Like, it was all very different. But I think that kind of led to being sort of the problem of that. Across the board, there wasn't any consistency. You didn't really know what you were going to get. And some VTs were stronger than others. If you don't know what VTs are, I don't really know how to explain it, but it's kind of like, sometimes they're like videos that you see of things. That's really not a great way of explaining it.
So a video.
It's like a video that is kind of played out during a broadcast. It could be like an interview or it could be a creative piece. It's usually something that is related to what the broadcast is about. So each team kind of had to create their own. So some did like an interview on the streets and kind of did like a comedic piece. Some teams like did some like artistic artwork that kind of like showed the history of their team. It was all very different. And I didn't like the fact that it was all quite different, and like I liked that people got to be creative with it, but overall the kind of production value of it was quite low for me personally. But then again, I work in that space of creating VTs and coming up with ideas for VTs and being in the edit for them and writing scripts for it. So like that is my job. And so they don't obviously have the big production companies to create this for them. They were doing this themselves, and they're not production companies, so it's not going to be to like the standard that my company would make them. So I just had like, there were lots of things that I felt were quite bitty about it. We didn't really hear from the drivers that much. They had very short time to answer a question. And I felt like they hired some really fantastic motorsport presenters, but didn't utilise them as much as they could because we had too many music sets that they got to ask one question and then that was it. And it kind of felt like, what was the point of having those presenters and them coming out on stage and asking these questions, because we didn't really get to hear the thoughts. And that's the whole point of this, is if it's for the fans, we want to hear what's going on. We didn't go because it was a music concert. We didn't tune in online because it was a music concert. We tuned in because it was meant to be a launch of these liveries, and we want to hear from the drivers that are going to be racing this season. And we didn't really. And that, I also had kind of like a problem with that. So I feel like the concept was quite good. The execution, not so great. And my question is, if they do this again next year, what makes this one, F175 as they've called it, so special? This year is 75 years of F1. Like, they didn't mention it. They might do it again next year because everyone loved it this year. What really was the point then?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. The 75 was kind of like an afterthought. Not like, now hearing you say that, I'm like, yeah, they didn't really like make that big of a deal about it. So yeah, I agree with you. There's definitely like room for improvement on some of these. I think for me, the biggest thing was I loved actually that everyone's kind of VT intro like show was a little different. The only thing I'd probably change about that would be everybody should get the same amount of time. I felt like some teams were up there for forever, and then some teams were there for like 5 minutes and called it a day. I want them to be like the same amount of time. And maybe they were. Maybe I just felt like one was dragging on and one wasn't. But I enjoyed the different performances. I thought it was cool to see performances as in like how the teams presented their cars. But I do agree with you that the whole like talking to drivers things felt so rushed. It was like, okay, quick, what do you think? Okay, great. Bye-bye. Like, we're off. So it definitely room for improvement. A lot of like small and big things. Yasmin, big thumbs up for you or big thumbs down? And would you like to see it again?
I think we've got like Daniela, you didn't like it, Brianna, you did like it, and I'm in the middle. Like, I think we've got
Perfect.
yeah, we've got quite a range of opinions. Because like you, Brianna, I went in going, I'm gonna hate this. They're just, another thing that Formula One want to take our money for. And I was really just like, oh, I just didn't really know how to feel about it. And I still don't really know. I liked parts of it. I like having kind of everyone together for a big launch event. But again, I completely forgot, even though it's called F175, I kind of forgot it was the 75th anniversary. Because again, like you said, Daniela, no mention hardly at all. I kind of just want to give them the benefit of a doubt because it is their first time doing this. And if they do it next year, I think I'd be more critical because, you've had people criticizing from last year, you should make it better this year. But I think they could really improve it to a point where everyone would like it. But I do think they need to do more talking to the drivers instead of that rush. And like the VTs at some points, I liked some, didn't like others. And it just kind of was a mixed bag, in my opinion. Like a lot could be improved. Again, like the musical acts, we're not here for a concert. But then, yeah, it's just kind of a mixed bag, to be honest, in my opinion. And I'm kind of, hopefully next year, we'll see. If they do it next year, it'll be better. Because I like having one event instead of each team doing their own separate events, mainly because I miss them because I'm busy, or I go, oh, I forgot that Red Bull are launching the same car this year with the same livery. So it would be nice to kind of have everyone together.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, we all have different opinions on this, but I think one thing we can all agree on is we would be interested in seeing it next year and seeing it improve and get better. I think we all also agree having one event instead of 10 separate ones as a fan to consume all of that is way better than, trying to keep track of when everyone's launching their cars and put it in your calendar and try to watch all of them.
Especially when they are often launched like in the UK specifically, like during the 9 to 5 time when everyone's at work. And if you don't work in that industry, you can't really tune in because you're at your job and that would be unprofessional. So
Right.
It's difficult to kind of keep across it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people won't get to tune in and watch the full thing because they'll just see the photos online after the launch and be like, oh, well, I don't need to watch the videos. And a lot of effort goes into those. And I know that from people who have worked on them at my company. Like, a lot of effort goes into those launches. And it's sad to think that maybe people don't get to see them because of when they're launched. But if they're maybe launched on the weekends, it maybe would have a different impact. People might tune in more, get more excited. But the fact that they put it all together into one thing really, really helped. Like, having that kind of, I feel like, especially it was in the evening for the UK, so it meant more people could watch it. And it was all together. We set out 2 hours aside to kind of see all of them. Everyone got to showcase it in their way that they wanted to, within budget. And no one was stressing about, like, when they're going to... Because some days, like, there'd be times when teams would release their show, like, on the same day as another team. And then they're trying to all fit it around. And then you're, like, in your schedule, like, oh, my God, I want to watch both, but how can I do that? I've got work as well. And, like, it's just nice. It all happened all in one hit. And we didn't need to stress about it, like, going forward. Like, we just can be like, okay, that's it. It's done. I know what each car looks like this season. These are my thoughts. And I don't need to stress about my schedule and trying to watch and be across all the 10 livery launches. Speaking of the liveries, though, I did want to ask you both what your favourite liveries were or are for this season.
Ooh. Okay, Yasmin, do you want to go first? You should go. No? Okay, I will say... Yasmin's like, I need a hot minute. Obviously, we had our typical reoffenders. Red Bull, same freaking car. Ferrari, pretty much the same freaking car, just like a logo in white instead of on red. Slightly different. We had our repeat offenders. But I would say and this is kind of shocking me that I'm even saying this, V-carb. I love the all white. Oh, like, it just hit different than all the rest. And obviously, they definitely made the biggest change to their livery over, like, the whole grid. But I really, really liked it. I thought it looked new. And also, sometimes I was getting their car in the Alpine last year, like, confused at a glance. So it definitely gives it more brand recognition on that track. I'm not mistaking that car for an Alpine. There's no way. It's all white. So I would say V-carb, well done, 10 out of 10 for the livery reveal. It's probably my favorite out of all of them. Yasmin?
I quite like the Aston Martin. I quite liked it. It's quite like slick and nice. I like how they've got kind of more black in it. Kind of like, I think that's
Yeah.
quite nice. But like, there wasn't like any liveries this year where I was like, oh my god, that's so nice. Like, they kind of, to me, were all like, yeah. But I think like I definitely agree with you with Visa, Cash App, Red Bull, whatever the heck. I really liked how they completely kind of switched it up with that all white. And like you said, it's definitely gonna stand out on track. I'm gonna go, okay, I know who they are, because I agree with you. I was like, Alpine, no, I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see, like, kind of properly on track on a race weekend. You can definitely see who's crashing, who's not.
For sure. Daniella, who was your fave?
I want to ask you guys a question. I want to know if you can guess what my favorite one was.
Oh, God.
Ooh.
Guess.
Red Bull? No.
Oh my
It's
God.
always Red Bull, Danielle, isn't it?
Well, the same livery that they've had for the last, like, decade. Yeah.
You love it. You love it.
That livery is consistent as Max Verstappen's performance. Like, I wasn't even questioning if they were going to change it. I just was like, can't wait to see the same new car again. Like, I didn't even. Oh my God. If Daniela had a favorite livery, I'm going to say McLaren. I'm going to say McLaren.
I was disappointed with McLaren because I thought they were going to launch an old livery or like a take on a previous livery. And I was like, it's 75, they're going to do it. This is going to be the time. And then Andrea was like, so we're going to pay tribute to our championship winning car. And I was like, okay, it's going to be the exact same livery. And then it was. And I was like, you could have done so much greatness with using taking a spin on an old livery. And I say it every year. Every year I'm like, they're going to do it this year. This is the year they're going to do it. But I was like, it's 75. They have to do it. They have really, like, this is the time. And they didn't do it, so I was very disappointed. So, no, it was not McLaren.
Big letdown.
It was
Don't
a
worry.
big letdown.
I don't think you're alone in that. I saw a lot of people online also being like, what the heck? Like, you built it up like you were about to show us the best livery of all time, and then it's the same car.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, I guessed wrong. Yasmin?
This is hard. This is really hard. Williams?
Wait, I think I know who it is now, but now I'm not going to say. Sorry, it just came to me. Williams?
No, say it. It wasn't Williams, no.
It's Alpine.
Yes!
I knew it! Oh my god, sorry Yasmin, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like it just like popped into my head. I was like, I know, it's Alpine. It's because of the pink, isn't it?
It is because of the pink.
It's a pink!
So,
I knew it! I freaking knew it!
when they, last year, for those who don't know, for the 2024 season, Alpine teased a pink camo livery. We did not get that. We literally could. It was nowhere near pink camo livery. It couldn't be further from it. And so this year, just before they were doing their launch, I started to paint my nails, which actually I'm going to show you, but they're really awful because I haven't changed them since that day. I started painting my nails pink, and I was messaging my friends going, I'm painting my nails pink right now in the hope that Alpine are going to have pink on their livery. I'm really manifesting this. And all my friends are like, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. And then they launched their car, and then there was pink, and I said, guys, it's happened. I've got the pink. And I was very, very happy because since kind of getting into motorsport, I've discovered a love for the colour pink. Growing up, was not a pink girl, was always a blue girl or a green girl. And now I'm a pink girl. So now I've got pink and blue, so I'm very happy. And yeah, I just think it is a very beautiful car, and it's just my favourite, and I can't wait to see it like properly on track during a race. And I'm going to look at it and be like, that is the best looking car on the grid.
I can't believe I didn't put two and two together. Oh my god. Yes,
know,
of
that's why-
course you think.
That's why I had that aha moment. It was, I looked at her shirt. If you guys aren't watching us on YouTube, she's wearing pink right now as well. And I looked at her shirt, and that's when the light bulb went off. I was like, oh my god. Whoa, hello. Yeah, if you're wondering, Daniella's manifestation powers are bar none. She's manifested the rookies, not just one, but 5, and manifested a pink Alpine. So we're just gonna keep that manifestation rolling. So write to us if you would like Daniella to manifest on your behalf, because apparently anything she manifests comes to life.
I manifested meeting Jamie Chadwick so hard that not only did I meet Jamie Chadwick, but I got to go to the women's test in Madrid and be in a paddock full of ex-W Series drivers / F1 Academy drivers, and it was the best day of my life. And I think if anyone wins at manifesting, it is me, because it went above and beyond, and it was honestly the best day of my life, and I have never recovered. And that was back in November, and I still talk about it daily.
Right.
Daniela also takes payment for manifesting, so we will link her PayPal down below.
Venmo us at the Fastlane Collective for your manifestation. $5 for one manifestation, $8 discount if you want 2 manifestations. We love this. Actually, I think we should start a segment called Daniella's Manifestation Moment. We love this for her.
Yeah, I'm so here for that. Let's do
Yeah,
it.
we love this. I love this. Also, just really quick, just to wrap up this F175 thoughts, give us more James Vowles. Listen. I love James Vowles because he just seems all in on connecting with the people, connecting with the fans. I have been so excited for him, especially when he went to Williams, just stepping into his own. But he's kind of got this like nerdy dad joke vibe going on. But guys, when I tell you, when he walked out on that stage and strutted his stuff and was like, "Hello, London," I was like, oh my god, am I developing feelings for James Vowles? Like, look at him strutting down this runway. My breath was taken away, so give us more James Vowles.
Served. Let's have him.
Yeah. Bring him more. And
Brianna, do I have to remind you that you are in fact married?
Yeah, well, you know, he's fine. We have already established.
He's fine, but he's not James Vowles.
We've already established. If ever Charles Leclerc were to come to my presence, like, I may possibly leave him, and he's totally okay with that. He's totally okay with that. So, you know. But I will say, if I had to pick an iconic moment, and I think we all will agree on this, for F175, it was probably Lewis walking out and seeing him for the first time in red in that type of environment. It just was one of those moments where you sit there and you're like, I am witnessing F1 history. And I'm so glad that, like, his debut with Ferrari happened in this way, because I think it was totally warranted. Give the people what they want. We want to see Lewis Hamilton just coming out in that red suit, displayed for all to see with the crowd, thousands cheering and smoke in the car. Like, it was everything I wish for and more, and it just was very much an iconic F1 moment, and I think I need to bring that up just because it is. We're witnessing F1 history with Lewis Hamilton going to Ferrari, and seeing it start in that way for a fan was just really, really special. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys feel this way as well, but when anytime I see on my Instagram or on social media a photo of Lewis Hamilton in red, my first reaction is to go, it's photoshopped, and scroll. I'm like, no, wait, we're in like the universe now, the timeline where this has happened. I think I'm just so used to, you know, a couple of years ago and like throughout Lewis's entire career, seeing like photoshopped edits of him in Ferrari gear that it just still takes me by. I'm like, oh yeah, that's happening. I forgot.
Yeah. It has not, it does not compute. Like, I agree with you. I still see it, and I'm just like, oh, this is so weird. This feels so weird. Like, I'm watching a weird Matrix simulation of if Lewis went to Ferrari. But I think it's going to take a while for fans to get used to seeing him. And rightfully so. He's been with Mercedes for forever. I think sometimes people forget he was with McLaren. Like, that's how long he's been with Mercedes, and how much Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton have always been in the same sentence. So seeing him, it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while. Anyways, thanks for listening to our thoughts on F175. We're going to round out this show with our talking about testing. Obviously, the 3 days of testing has been completed in Bahrain. It is done and is finished. We saw a lot going on, and this is testing. So we all know we have to take everything we see with a grain of salt, because we don't really know what packages, what things these teams are running. And it's testing. They are testing things. They're not just out there trying to go as fast as possible at all times. I think what was really interesting about this testing this year, we saw cold, we saw wind, we saw some rain even, we saw George Russell in a foil jacket. We saw some strange things, including some other things which we'll get into just in a second here. But I wanted to both voice a question for you to start off our testing segment and recap. Obviously, a lot of people say sandbagging. This is a huge kind of word that is thrown around this time of year, especially around testing. In the past, sandbagging was really big. If you don't know what sandbagging is, you're new to Formula One. It's when teams don't really show their full hand. They're not running their full package. They're kind of hiding what's really under the hood. They don't want to give it away in fear that other teams may steal it, look at it, or just downplaying. They just want people to downplay them, basically, and then come out on the first race and destroy everyone. We've seen teams do this in the past, but I think we're starting to see less of this sandbagging happening. Obviously, we're 2025 now. It's very hard not to see things on these cars with the data flying around as well. It's hard to hide. So I guess I'll start with you, Daniella. Do you think sandbagging is still going on in Formula One?
I feel like it might possibly be. However, I don't feel like it was really mentioned in the broadcast at all. Like I listened to a lot of the broadcast as much as I kind of could, and I don't really feel like it was mentioned. If it was mentioned, nowhere near as much as it normally is. And I feel like usually the term sandbagging is normally associated with both Red Bull and Mercedes. And I think that they both, like Red Bull in particular, did not kind of show that they really had the pace. And I don't feel like that was actually a sandbagging moment. I think that genuinely might be how they are this season. I could be wrong. They might be sandbagging and then go and watch Max Verstappen win every race this season. But I think that it really just was not spoken about this year. And I think that's very interesting, because it was something I did pick up on. I was like, are anyone sandbagging, or is this genuinely what people are believing to be their true pace? But then it was hard to kind of really compare, because some teams are on their own like separate kind of strategy, I guess, of how they were going to approach testing. So Haas, for example, weren't really trying to put in the best laps. They were more so focusing on their different setups, their tyre strategy. That's something that they really were focusing on specifically, were their tyres and how they were going to manage that this season. At one point, they were having pieces of their car flying off, which, not great when you're when it's not long to the start of the season and you have parts of your cars coming off. But I think that it was, I feel like this year felt like a very different kind of setup with the teams kind of doing their own thing, rather than all kind of going out on track and trying to put out that fastest lap or try and trick people into thinking that they're not that great this year. So I don't feel like sandbagging was as prevalent this year, but it might still be there. I just think it's different, like a different case. And I feel like out of everyone, McLaren have kind of shown like their strongest, like at the moment they're kind of like this looking the strongest heading into Australia. I think I read somewhere that like they were doing like these practice kind of races, I guess. I don't really know the exact term for it. And Lando was up against Charles Leclerc and Kimi, and Lando, I think, ended up being like 30 seconds ahead of them in this race, because even though they didn't put out the fastest lap overall, Lando put out the fastest lap on day one, they were kind of showing that they did have the pace to kind of win races, which I think is very interesting. I feel like they weren't sandbagging. They were going, this is who we are, this is what we've got. We won the Constructors' Championship last year. we're going to prove ourselves in this test. And I think that's what they did.
Yeah. Yas, what are your thoughts? Sandbagging a thing of the past, or teams still using it?
I think to a certain extent, probably yes. I think every team wants to hide at least something. Like you said, don't want to show their entire hand. But I think like that's the whole point of testing, is to test. And I think it's kind of stupid sometimes when again, I understand why teams do it, but I think it can be a bit stupid to not just put everything you have on the track and see what works, see what doesn't, and try and fix or improve those times. And you can kind of compare to other teams. But I think it kind of, I guess, Formula One is becoming, at least like teams as of recently, everyone keeps getting more and more complex, and testing is so vital and needed to try and see where they can get that extra few tenths here and there. So I think sandbagging is slowly not as prevalent as it would used to be, because we got to test everything to make sure that we apply with the rules and regulations, and that we can just get the best that we can out of our team and the car.
Yeah, I mean, testing is testing. And you're right, you can't always, teams' goals, like Daniella, you mentioned with Haas, like they're more focusing on their tire strategy and their setups. And obviously, the teams want to make sure they're extracting as much data and as much information out of the car so they can go into Australia and obviously the start of the season on a strong foot. They're not trying to figure these things out as the season goes. You want to try and figure out as much as you can in those 3 days, which kind of seems impossible. 3 days. That's wild. But I think, in the beginning of this episode, we were talking so much about how like this season feels different. It feels so exciting, and it feels like the playing field has been leveled. And I think that is a lot from what we've seen in testing. I remember this time last year, we're like, oh, can't wait to hear the Dutch national anthem 400 times. Like, Red Bull clearly looks stronger than everybody else, especially from what we saw in testing and the first race. But I think from what we've seen this week in these 3 days, the playing field is kind of even with some surprise contenders, Carlos Sainz, Williams. But I think it's safe to say that Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull, and especially McLaren are all there. And it could be any man's game, especially just how close they're looking and seeming. But let's talk about Carlos Sainz, because I think if there was one surprise in testing, it was this. Carlos Sainz just putting in one of the fastest laps of the 3 days of testing. This is unbelievable. I know I saw people on social media saying, did the Ferrari fire the wrong guy? Like, oh my God. And people being like, if I was Alex Albon, I'd be really worried right now. Daniella, what are your thoughts on Carlos just really sending it with this Williams and putting in an incredible lap that no one has really seen a Williams do before?
I think that it was very impressive, but also we do need to consider that it is testing. And so people aren't, I know it's kind of just contradicts what I just said, but people might not be putting in like their maximum pace that they can do. And Carlos might have gone, I just wonder what I can do in this car, and went for it. I'm not sure fully what their strategy was, like what they were kind of gaining out of testing. And I don't even know actually when Carlos put this lap in. But I think it was interesting for him to kind of show to Williams what he can do, and that he is going to push his car to his absolute limits. And I think I've said this before, but I think if there's one person who can do that, it is Carlos. He's definitely proved himself, especially at his time in Ferrari, and even at McLaren, because he kind of changed that team. He really managed to get them to be front running. They were really struggling before Carlos joined, and him and Lando together really kind of transformed McLaren into kind of what they've, like, it's kind of, I feel like, how they became constructors for this year. Was it all started from that year with Carlos and Lando to begin with. So I think that Carlos is all about kind of transforming these teams and really proving that like they deserve to be in F1 and that they can like be up there. And I'm not going to say that Williams is going to start winning races or getting podiums, but I do think that they will kind of be working their way up the midfield, and I think that they could be like quite consistently like in the points, I think this year. I read somewhere as well that they think that they will be kind of hitting Q3 quite a lot, which for me is, as a Williams fan, I'm quite excited about.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly interesting to see, especially because this is really the first long stint of time that Carlos has spent in that car, and to see him seemingly, from what it looks like from us on the outside, as comfortable as he is with the car already, is encouraging. We often see when drivers switch teams, especially like, Carlos was with Ferrari for a decent amount of time. You're switching from a team that, has a decent amount of legacy like Williams does, but we all know Williams has way less money than Ferrari. And, learning the team, learning the car, it's a whole new ball game. But to see him quite comfortable and putting in a lap like he did in testing, like you said, Daniella, it's only testing, everyone calm down. But it's still very encouraging and very exciting. And I think for Williams, just a great sign of positive steps that they have been very slowly taking over the past couple years. But I really do think having Carlos in the team, it will help accelerate that progress moving into 2026. I have predictions about where I think Williams will be, but we will keep those for next episode because we will dive into all of our predictions for the season before the first race of the season on Australia. Yasmin, we're talking about, we said Carlos seems very comfortable. Lewis Hamilton also seems quite comfortable in the Ferrari as well, still learning as he goes, but he put in some pretty fast laps as well. Someone who wasn't looking so comfortable and so happy was surprisingly Max Verstappen. Max didn't do a race run for the weekend. We saw several clips, especially on day 3, of him in the cockpit of the car, shaking his head, looking quite unhappy. They seem to be struggling a bit. Do you think, Yasmin, this is a sign that Red Bull's not as strong as they have been in the past? Or is this Max Verstappen wanting perfection and not getting it?
I mean, no Adrian Newey this year. And I think there we're going to see really where Red Bull's kind of faults are without Adrian, because I mean he was such a strong pillar when it comes to Red Bull's car, and I do think that we're gonna see kind of like a lack of performance with the Red Bull this year. Although in saying that, Adrian Newey has gone the Aston Martin, and Aston Martin, they aren't looking very good, and Fernando Alonso isn't very happy. But sticking to Red Bull, I don't think this is Max Verstappen kind of, doing his hissy fit, kind of annoyed because, he had water leaks and understeer leading to exit oversteer during testing, and just overall with the multiple setups not working and test runs and limited track time, it just wasn't what they wanted. And even their technical director, I cannot speak, Pierre, did say that it was not as smooth as expected, which was a shame. But again, testing, you never know. Maybe by Australia they'll have those issues sorted, or maybe in a couple of races they'll understand it a bit more what the issue is. But so far, not looking good. And for all those Max haters, they're going to be happy. Although oh, we also forgot to mention that with the F1 75, the booing that Max Verstappen got on stage, I feel really bad for him.
Oh my god. Yeah, how did we forget the booing? I mean, I don't know. I was just like, getting a taste of your own medicine, you two. Like, especially Christian Horner being booed. I just was like, I don't know, brought me some slight joy seeing how uncomfortable he was on stage. I know that's horrible to say, but he talks a lot of crap and he stirs the pot a lot. And it's so funny when they have to like face the music, how sometimes they're like, oh, get me out of here. Ah, scary. It's like, yeah, well, think next time before you talk, buddy. Maybe just think. But yeah, how did we forget that? I don't know. Really quick, before we wrap up this topic of testing, Any comments related to the teams that you guys felt? Yasmin, I know you mentioned Aston Martin didn't look so hot. Danielle, you mentioned Haas losing some parts. Anything else? Anybody that stood out to you while you were watching testing these past 3 days?
Something that I found quite interesting was, I think it was on day one, they at McLaren, I need to learn the technical terms, but I don't, and I'm just going to preface that I'm not Bernie Collins, okay? I will try my best here.
We're all learning together, Daniela.
Yes,
no shade. We're all learning together.
So, in the final 2 minutes, McLaren put on so much fluorescent paint on one side. I think it was the left side of the car. Like, left side as if you were in the cockpit. Left side, not if you were looking at the car, like head on. They covered it in so much fluorescent green paint so that Lando could take it out and get some data. And I was listening to the commentary and I heard them say they've like never seen that much paint on a car before. And they start to question like, is it really that safe? It's kind of ironic because then, as they said, this kind of Lando had like a little wobble and kind of a sort of spin. And I just found it very interesting that they decided to quite last minute to do one lap, very slow as well, to then get the data as if they hadn't. It almost kind of, to me, could be wrong, felt like they'd kind of been like, oh my god, we were supposed to do this and we haven't done this, oh my god, let's just quickly do it now. And then they didn't want the media to see what they were doing. So when Lando then came back into the pits, the whole pit crew were kind of covering up this car. They did not want anyone to see it. The irony is it has just gone out on a broadcast with some really great, like, high definition footage of it on track. So that kind of didn't work. And they were, like, kind of jokingly pushing away photographers and journalists and things. But I just found that whole kind of, like, little segment right at the end of the first day just really bizarre and quite interesting to know, like, what McLaren are up to. I could be so wrong on my thoughts on that, as someone who doesn't fully understand the technical elements that make up Formula One. But yeah, I think that it kind of showcased a different side to testing and highlights to people like and to fans who maybe don't fully understand the point of testing, that this is rather than it being track times, lap times, of like sector times, like it's more so about the data that the teams are collecting, about how their car works on track, how it works with their driver, how it works in different conditions. As you said, Brianna, we had some really strange conditions of Bahrain. We had a lot of wind, we had a lot of rain, and it was very, very, very cold, as I have been told by my work colleagues. They said it was freezing. And I think that is going to be so different to when they come back in Bahrain. It's going to be so different to Australia. So they're really trying to see, with the conditions that they had, what they could get out of this test. We had a lot of red flags due to the weather as well, like times being like pushed back and things. So I think that, yeah, I just found that very interesting aspect to testing. And it was just a kind of like a great way, I feel like, to highlight to everyone like what testing is all about.
Yeah. And fun fact of the day, the yellow paint, the green paint that Daniella is referring to, is called FlowViz. Fun fact.
Thank you. I didn't know that. I thought it was just like fluorescent paint. I didn't know it had a name. There we go.
Yeah, I just learned it last year because they were referencing a lot on the broadcast, FlowViz. And I was like, what is FlowViz? It's fluorescent paint that they use to track how the air is running over the car. But yeah, I did see that, and how basically it wasn't even all the pit crew. It was like every McLaren employee they could find came out to cover that car to get it back in the garage. And I was like, this feels sus. Like, something is going on.
Thank you for mentioning that, like, it was for the wind. I did not mention that. And that seems like I should have said that, like, what the point of the whole paint was. It was to test out the aerodynamics, where is the wind hitting the car. And I very clearly did not mention that key fact that I should have said. So thank you for bringing that up.
Oh my god, you're fine. Like I said, we're all learning here together. We are all 100% ourselves here on this show. We don't claim to know everything or who won a championship 22 years ago even. So like we said, we're 100% ourselves. Yasmin, Anything that stood out to you with any of these teams? You mentioned Aston Martin. Anybody else tickling your fancy in testing?
Well, when I was reading up and seeing if I missed anything throughout the 3 days of testing, something that kept coming up with specifically McLaren and Ferrari was their rear wing flexing. So it kind of like raised suspicions about like teams exploiting like kind of mini DRS to reduce the drag and to increase her straight line speed, obviously. But yeah, I noticed it slightly, but for it to really just be McLaren and Ferrari that have this like flexing, I was like, oh, do you think the FAA might clamp down on that, or do you think they won't? Because I think with how the FIA is at the moment, they might try and put in some rules to try and change it, or teams might, oppose to it. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
I think that, you go.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Oh. Actually, there is a rule in place, because if you guys remember last year, McLaren got in a lot of hot water for that little flexi back wing. Teams were calling it basically cheating. And when you did look at the footage, it was like, whoa, that back wings are really flexing. They actually are putting in some more strict rules around actually how much that back wing can flex. And we'll get into that next week, because I have a whole segment on just 6 rules that you should know that are changing for the season that are quite important. And that is one of them. So, Yasmin, way to just like dangle that little nugget for all of us to tune in next Tuesday for our show.
I just definitely knew that we were going to be talking about that next week, 100%.
100% you did. Daniella, sorry, didn't mean to like cut you off there.
It's all good. I was just going to say that I do think that other teams will definitely be raising this, especially I think Red Bull, because it's not happening to them. They will definitely start shouting and making a lot of fuss about it, as they do whenever there's anything like this. And they're like, but I'm such a good team. Look at me. I've not got any problems whatsoever. They will be making a fuss. We never cheat. We would never do anything like that. So they will definitely be raising it. And if they don't, I stand corrected. But I think they could be the first voice to say something.
I would not be shocked. Christian Horner loves to just make his voice known out there. But yeah, I agree. Good observation though, Yasmin. Something definitely we all need to look out for, not just with those 2 teams, but to see if other teams start to mess around if the FIA don't make any stricter rules on it. Last thing about testing, just to round this out, you guys, I know this show has been so long, we apologize. But we need to mention this because just like the weird cold and wind and rain that were very unlike Bahrain and testing conditions, period, we saw some other things that were very, very questionable and not usually seen in testing. Day 1, big power cut, the whole track, or was it day 1? No, I believe day 2, sorry. The whole track lost power. All the lights were out in the garages on the track. Testing got pushed back because basically everyone was in the dark. No one could see. Everyone was using their flashlights on their phones to like do work. We saw that happen. We saw, what else happened? A bus appeared on the track while F1 cars were on the track testing, which caused a red flag. Like, how does that happen? Not sure. And then we saw also glass on the track as well. Daniella, I know we were talking about this before we hopped on to record. This is shocking and, not gonna lie, kind of embarrassing for the Bahrain circuit. What do you make of all of this just absolute chaos?
It just, I feel like, sums up that everyone says F1 is the pinnacle of motorsport, but then we have the most ridiculous things happen that you're like, how is this the pinnacle of motorsport? I actually got a phone call from one of our producers when all the lights went down. And he was like, yeah, we're just all kind of in darkness right now. We've got a red flag. There's nothing like going on. Everyone's come back in, but all the garages are in darkness. And I was like, oh, right. Okay. That's strange. Very interesting. And so then they pushed it all back for an hour. And then, so the cars had an extra hour at the end of the day, which meant that the teams and that were all there. Like, there was 9 hours of testing that day because of it, which is quite a long day. Like, to be working on those cars and stuff, I know that obviously like a typical like day job would be like 9 hours, but I think for constant like track action for that long is quite a long time. And then with the glass, I watched that bit like live on Sky Sports, and everyone was like, what is that? Is that a panel from the booth up there? Is like what's good? Like everyone was like, what on earth is happening? And all I could think about was, I'm actually just so glad that it fell out. Even though we don't want the cars driving over it, because obviously that's going to damage the tyres and whatnot, I was just, like, I was glad and grateful that it didn't go the other way, because it would have gone over the people in that little booth thing. At first I thought, like, maybe it'd come from the clock and the 5 lights. I thought that's where it had come from. And then when they kind of panned up, I was like, oh yeah, the little like flag booth thing. I don't actually know what it's called. Again, classic me, not knowing terms of things. I call myself a motorsport researcher. Goodness me. But I was just grateful that no one was like hurt, as far as I'm aware, and that it kind of felt outwards rather than inwards. And then with the bus, that just felt like so random. Like, where the hell did that come from? Like, why was that allowed? Because there are strict rules about being on track, who can go out on track, when the track is hot, when the track is cold. I do not understand, in terms of security levels, how that bus got onto the track when the cars were on there. I genuinely don't understand how that, like, someone didn't pull them up on it before it happened. Like, what was going on at Bahrain for that to have sneaked onto the track?
Yeah, it honestly, if I were the heads of that track, I would be quite embarrassed for not just all the things that happened. Okay, the power outage, all right, like, we could put that to the side. That's a little out of your control. But the bus and the glass, and like, the glass especially, quite dangerous. Like, imagine a car going over that, glass getting kicked up. You've got glass flying at hundreds of miles an hour toward other drivers, like, instant death. Literally instant death. So it's quite embarrassing. Yasmin, do you think that Bahrain will kind of clean up their act by the time the official F1 race comes around to race there?
I really hope so, as like I've been to Bahrain and their F1 testing, and when I was on track and went around their facilities, like it ran very smoothly, and it was like a very professional place, of course, and you know, security everywhere, and that's why I don't understand how the bus got onto the track, because everything is like, you know, closed off, security, everyone has like walkie-talkies, so like if you don't know where to go or stuff like that. So that's why I'm so confused on how the hell did we just get a bus on track? Like, what is going on? I just think it was one thing after the other, and especially with it being like the power outage and how cold it was. Like when I was in Bahrain, I was sweating. It was hot. It was very, very, very hot. So I just think this whole F1 testing has kind of been a bit of a write-off from the start. And I think the circuit will definitely want to impress after just kind of like the mess of testing. And hopefully they do, because I love Bahrain. It's such an amazing track. And it would be a shame that their reputation starts to go down after this.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's cross our fingers that they get their act together by the time the F1 circus comes back around. But also, you mentioning you being in Bahrain, if you guys don't know this about Yasmin, how this didn't make it into your intro, I have no idea. She is the Formula One DHL announcer. Was that the official term? You won that whole contest and actually went with F1 to testing 2 years ago.
Yeah, I did. I won the DHL commentator challenge a couple of years ago, and it was the most incredible experience of my life. I met a lot of the drivers. I commentated live on Sky Sports and F1 TV with Alex Jacks and, you know, Lawrence Barretto and Julian Palmer. It was just like, the entire time. It was crazy.
And how did that not make it into your intro? I have no idea. But yeah, like Daniella and Yasmin, both very legit humans. I'm just the token American on the show.
No, you're not. No.
I have been to the Canadian Grand Prix twice, and that's all. But yeah, if you're wondering, oh my god, why should I listen to this podcast? It's because we all come from different parts. Some of us currently involved in the motorsports world, some of us was and training to be, and some of us are just obsessed hardcore fans like myself. So that's why you should listen to us, and that's why we're different from every other podcast that's out there right now under the sun. So yeah, testing definitely full of surprises when it comes to the weather, buses, power outages, and even some of the results we saw on track. So if anything, this has made me more excited for Australia, more excited for the season, and I cannot wait to see just the difference from what we saw in testing to what we're actually going to see on track, which I think is the most exciting. Okay, guys, that is it for this very long first episode. If you have made it to the end of this, God bless you. We appreciate you so much, and we are so excited. I'll say it again. I'll probably say it every episode, but this show is truly a labor of love for me, Daniella, and Yasmin. We're so excited to just bring this podcast to life, bring you into this community, and make you a part of the show. We have so many fun things planned to get you guys involved, in addition just to listening every week. But since we are a new podcast, we are launching this fresh little baby out into the world right now. Please make sure to subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you're listening to us on. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Make sure to do that. Please subscribe and leave us a review. We love to hear from you. And once we get more reviews, we are going to read them live on air. So if you leave us a review, you could hear your review just out here in the world, which we would love to read to everybody. So please do that. As always, like we mentioned, we're going live on Friday to watch the first episode of DTS, and you can follow us over on TikTok and Instagram at the Fastlane Collective _. You'll see our little orange and blue logo as how you can identify us, but make sure to follow us over on there. We're also on YouTube at the same handle, the Fastlane Collective _. If you want to watch the podcast, if you're one of those people that loves watching podcasts instead of just listening to them, you can do that as well. We appreciate your support in advance. We love you guys so much, and we will see you next Tuesday with more predictions for Australia and more just fun facts, and we'll even clue you into some other fun things we're bringing to the show as well. So make sure to subscribe and listen next Tuesday. But until then, you guys, we will see you in the fast lane. Bye-bye.
Hello, fly chick coming through. Nice to meet you, glad you came too. Like your style when you know you got moves.